cs.edu.
What we know about this president is that he doesn't attack first, but he always responds. He'll respond to someone who's black. He'll respond to someone that's a woman. He'll respond to someone that's white.
Little Marco. Pocahontas. Crooked Hillary Clinton.
The president has done this to African Americans, to white people, to white men, to white women, to members of his own cabinet.
Hillary Clinton. She's a world-class liar.
He uses dumb across race, across gender.
We're very down. They think we're stupid. We're being led by stupid people.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb.
I don't respond to Donald Trump and his string of insults about me. I can take care of myself.
How stupid are the people of the country to believe this?
Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged.
An informed patriot is what we want.
Welcome to American Family Radio's Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio.
Muscular Christianity,
where we relentlessly explore the intersection of truth and politics.
The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Now, here's your host, Brian Fisher.
Howdy, and welcome to a brand new broadcast of Focal Point on American Family Radio. Focal Point, the fastest 60 minutes in American media. So buckle up. We are the Daytona 500 of conservative talk radio. As you're aware, this is the second day of our 1 hour broadcast. From this point forward, we'll just have 1 hour for Focal Point from 1 to 2 p.m. Central Time. Well, let's jump right into the Word of God. And what's interesting about the passage that we're looking at today, I think there's a little bit of a peek into what the future looks like. This is the last chapter in the book of Isaiah. Actually begins this, part of the prophecy begins in the end of chapter 65, goes through the end of chapter 66, and it's God speaking through Isaiah about what's coming when he creates a new heavens and a new earth. And this is what it looks like. This is what life is like. This is the description of what life is going to be like in the new heavens and the new earth. This is after Christ returns. God says in chapter 65, verse 17, "Behold, I create new heavens and a new earth." So he says, and he used the word create there. It's the same word that's found in Genesis 1:1 when God created the universe and everything that exists. So he's saying here that this is going to be an entirely new state of affairs. This is going to be a state of affairs that we have not seen before. It's going to be a state of affairs that will be brought into being by his creative power, the same power that created the universe and everything that exists, according to Genesis 1:1. Now he says the mark of this new heaven and new earth, and this is where I'm going to follow Isaiah's presentation here literally, because this is the way it reads to me. It doesn't read to me as symbolic. It reads to me as a literal prophetic fulfillment. And what Isaiah is saying is that when Christ returns and creates by his power a new heavens and a new earth, Jerusalem will be the capital of the world. The entire world, the entire physical world, the planet will be governed from Jerusalem. And Jesus will reign there in the city of Jerusalem. He literally will be the king of the world, not Leonardo DiCaprio, but Jesus Christ will be the king of the world. And you and I will assist him. We will help him in ruling over his new kingdom, this new heavens and this new earth. So there's an earthly component to this new kingdom. Now, there's one cool thing that he says about the new heavens and the earth in verse 17 of chapter 65. He says, "The former things shall not be remembered or come into mind." The former things shall not be remembered or come into mind. What are the former things? They are the things that existed before Jesus comes to create a new heavens and a new earth. And those things will not be remembered. They will not even come into our minds. I want you to think about this for just a second. Think about all of the painful memories that you have, all of the suffering that you've experienced, the humiliations, the betrayals, the injustices you have suffered, all the rejection, all the times that your heart has been broken. Think about all the mistakes that you've made, all that you wish you could get back, the things that you wish you could do over, the sins that you committed, and you would give anything to have an opportunity to be in that situation again so you could make a different decision, but it's too late for that. You can't unwind. You can't unring that bell. You can't unwind that clock. So all the things that you wish you could do over. And these things kind of nag us in this life. They come to our mind. They come into our minds when we don't even want to think about them, and they kind of bother us. I mean, there's a nagging thing. We feel a resurgence of a little bit of that guilt. And it doesn't matter how many times we've dealt with that before the Lord, sought his forgiveness, put that sin under the blood of the cross. There's still something that kind of chips away at us when that thing comes into our mind. Well, in the new heavens and the new earth, those things aren't going to be there. They're not even going to enter our minds. They will not be remembered. The slate will be wiped clean. We won't even be able to remember those things. We won't be able to recall those things even if we tried. Now, I would consider that to be good news. Now, God also plans, as I mentioned, to make Jerusalem the center of the world and the focus of his attention. Here's what he says in Isaiah 65, verses 18 and 19. Be glad and rejoice forever in that which I create, for behold, I create Jerusalem to be a joy, and her people to be a gladness. I will rejoice in Jerusalem. I will be glad in my people. No more shall be heard in it the sound of weeping and the cry of distress. They shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat the fruit. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For like the days of a tree shall the days of my people be. And then down in verse 24, before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. So in the new heavens and the new earth, we're going to have the turbocharged answers to prayer. God will answer. We'll be praying in the age to come, but God will answer those prayers before we even finish asking him. The answers to our prayers will be instantaneous. By the way, one other thought before we go to prayer, there will be zoos. Well, you won't even need zoos in the age to come. Notice as he says in verse 25, wolf and the lamb will graze together. The lion shall eat straw like the ox. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain. So we'll go back to the way things were in Genesis 1, where everything, including man, we started out as herbivores. We weren't carnivores at the beginning. Neither were animals. There were no carnivores at the beginning. Everybody ate leafy things, things that grew on plants and things that grew on trees. And the animals will go back to that state, so there won't be any such thing in the animal kingdom as predators and prey. They'll enjoy each other, and we'll be able to enjoy them enjoying each other. Well, let's go to prayer. Lord God, we bow before your throne this day. You are a mighty God. Heaven is your throne. The earth is your footstool. We cannot build a house or a resting place for you, since your hand has made all things that have come into being. I ask you to pour out your favor and your blessing on me, on my family, on the listening audience of Focal Point, everyone right now on the sound of my voice this day. I pray that we will be humble and contrite in spirit and tremble at your word, so that you may esteem us. When you call, may we answer. When you speak, may we listen. I pray that we will do what is good in your sight and choose what pleases you. I pray that your hand will be made known to us as your servants. May our hearts rejoice to see this, and may we flourish like grass. Please extend peace to us like a river, and may wealth and glory come to us like a flooding stream. I pray that our name and our descendants will endure before you like the new heavens and the new earth that you make. In Jesus' name, amen.
Are you a responsible person who finds yourself growing deeper and deeper in credit card debt and you're not sure how to fix the problem? Then get ready for a toll-free number that will put you on a path to financial recovery. Trinity Debt Management is a nonprofit organization that will consolidate your accounts into one easy-to-manage monthly payment, put a stop to late fees and over-limit charges, and reduce your interest rates by as much as 60%. You'll save thousands and become debt-free for keeps. It's not a loan. It's a smart way to relieve your stress, meet your obligations, and preserve your self-respect. If your debt has you down, we should talk. Gather up your bills and call this toll-free number for a free, no-obligation debt analysis. 1-800-788-1813. That's 1-800-788-1813. If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
Why should a fool have money in his hand to buy wisdom when he has no sense? My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. The Medicare for All plan pushed by Senator Bernie Sanders and endorsed by a host of Democratic congressional and presidential hopefuls would increase government health care spending by $32.6 trillion over 10 years, according to a study released by George Mason University. In order to pay for this, every American citizen would have to, at a minimum, double what they're already paying in federal income taxes. But let's be frank here. The George Mason University researchers admitted $32.6 trillion was a conservative number. The actual price tag would be much higher.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, public policy analyst for the American Family Association.
This is Focal Point with Brian Fisher on American Family Radio.
Howdy, welcome back to Focal Point, American Family Radio, the fastest 60 minutes in American Radio. Buckle up. We are going to hit the ground running here. A couple of quick items before we get into some of the content. Today is the anniversary of the bombing of Nagasaki. There is only one surviving member from the cruise that dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and he says today that he has no regrets about his role, nor should he. He says this, after 73 years, I do not regret what we did that day. All war is hell. The Japanese started the war. It was our turn to finish it. Now, here's something you're going to wish you could unsee, but you won't be able to. You know what we're going to have for the first time this year on the sidelines of NFL games? Male dancers. Just heard Rob groan from across the studio. Jeff's out there just shaking his head. L.A. Rams, New Orleans Saints will have male cheerleaders dancing on their squads for the first time. Now, we got a cultural crisis in the state of Maine. They got a contest every year called the Maine Lobster Festival Sea Goddess Competition, and they had to dethrone this year's lobster pageant winner of her title because she was seen in a picture smoking a joint. That's a no-no. She is out of here. Now, this last week, we had the inductions into the National Football League Hall of Fame. One of the inductees was Ray Lewis, outstanding linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens, won a couple of Super Bowls with them. I mean, he was an absolute beast, a completely dominant linebacker, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I watched a little bit of his induction ceremony speech, and it was like being in a revival tent. I mean, Ray got wound up. He was cooking. He was getting after it. And here's what he said toward the end of his Hall of Fame induction speech, clip one.
One of the greatest gifts my mom ever gave me was the Bible. Now, the Bible made me who I am today. Ephesians 3 of verse 20 says, now unto him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above, far beyond all you can ever ask, think, or imagine, according to the power that's working within you. Walk with me out of here today with the mission in your mind, in your heart. Vow to be a leader in your community. Vow to be a ray of light in the world around you. Together, there's nothing we can't do.
All we're missing is the altar call in that
right.
one, ladies and gentlemen. That's Ray Lewis lighting it up at the Hall of Fame ceremony. Good for him.
Amen.
Amen to that. You know, one of the things we talk about frequently on this program is the Constitution, because I want to introduce you to the basics, the fundamentals of the Constitution. I want to clear up your thinking, because there is so much thinking out there in our culture that is totally messed up when it comes to the Constitution. Let's listen to some students from Columbia University. Now, if you would think there would be any place in America where students on a campus would know the rights that are spelled out in the First Amendment, it would be on an Ivy League campus. Here's Columbia. This guy from Campus Reform is there talking to students on campus, asking them about the rights that are identified and protected in the First Amendment. Here's how that conversation went.
Where do you think the line is on when something should no longer be protected by the First Amendment?
I think the line starts drawing when you get offensive trying to in people's like culture, identity, and where they identify as.
I don't think that it's fair for people to use the First Amendment as kind of like, you know, an excuse to say whatever they want. That's very hurtful and malicious to others. So
Isn't the Constitution the excuse, though?
It really is. Now that you think, like, now that I'm saying it out loud.
So I think the line should be if you're intolerant of other groups in a way that makes their opinion seem like less, that's defeating the whole purpose.
Who gets to decide what is intolerant, though?
Who gets to decide? It's a pretty arbitrary line, but I think it's less arbitrary to say if you're deeming a group less equal.
The defining characteristic is respect and safety. So if someone's promoting an ideology that there needs to be a threshold at which...
Who gets to decide where that threshold is?
I mean, academic communities, basically.
If you start to
so the academic communities, according to these wonder kids at Columbia, are going to decide what is offensive and what isn't. That's how you get YouTube banning InfoWars, banning conservative sites. Got a story in the stack about how they banned a Facebook ad. Facebook banned an ad from a conservative candidate for Congress in California's District 16. My old hometown of Fresno is located in that district. And the reason they banned her ad is she showed some pictures at the beginning of her ad of the killing fields in Cambodia. Her parents survived the killing fields, migrated to America, started a new life there, and she's the beneficiary of all the opportunities that she and her family had in California. She graduated high school, she went to Stanford, she got a master's, I think, from Yale in business, and is now running for the United States Congress. But Facebook just banned it because they had these realistic photographs of what the Cambodian Holocaust was like. And so her ad now cannot be viewed on Facebook. I think you can go to her Facebook site. I went and looked at it. Very good ad. And she's a very soft-spoken, very mild-mannered woman, just a solid conservative. Wants to go to, Victor Davis Hanson wrote a very eloquent endorsement of her today. Victor Davis Hanson lives in the Central Valley, lives in Visalia. It's a farm community not too far from Fresno, and he's a scholar at the Hoover Institution, which is a conservative think tank right in the middle of Stanford University campus. This big, beautiful, huge tower called Hoover Tower. We called it Hoo-Tow for short. But the only people in the Hoover Tower are conservatives like Victor Davis Hanson. And so it's a think tank promoting, and that's where Thomas Sowell was a resident scholar and all that kind of business. And so she's a good one. Her name is Elizabeth Heng, H-E-N-G, from Cambodia. She's the real deal. Now, sometimes, the media just kind of cracks me up. I'm taking a brief detour here. This cracks me up. This guy, a story about a guy, Associated Press, about a guy who jumped out of a freezer and threatened employees with a knife. He then died. Now, it turns out that this guy is a suspect in a shooting that took place in 1988, which has since become, because they didn't apprehend anybody, has since become a cold case. Now, here's the headline in the Washington Times: man who jumped out of freezer and died was cold case suspect.
Oh, oops.
So sometimes I'm guessing that probably was intentional. And if it was, I give him credit for that. Guy in a freezer, subject in a cold case murder. Anyway, that's the latest from the Associated Press. Now, we've got this nomination of Brett Kavanaugh is being considered by the Senate. Well, when they get around to it, the Democrats are trying to stall this thing. They're asking for all kinds of completely extraneous documents. And the National Archives said, look, if we give you everything you want, we won't be able to finish until the end of October, meaning the earliest he could get a vote would be sometime in November. So I think Chuck Grass is just saying, look, we're not going to, and that's just, it's just stuff that passed across his desk when he was the staff secretary to President George W. Bush. So I think Grass is getting a little bit fed up with that and is going to toss that. But this is an interesting thing. This came to light in 2013. I love this guy. I mean, I'm starting to like this guy better and better. I've got some major problems with him, but this kind of stuff makes me like him more. In 2013, he was speaking at Case Western Reserve Law School in Ohio. That's a good law school. And he was asked about signing statements. George Bush issued a number of signing statements. He was sent a bill by Congress to sign it into law, and he would sign it into law, but he would issue right alongside it a signing statement. And I wouldn't be surprised if a number of these signing statements might have been issued with the help of Brett Kavanaugh. But here's what Kavanaugh noted in his address. If a president signs a bill, quote, and says these certain provisions in here are unconstitutional and we're not going to follow those provisions, that is a traditional exercise of power by presidents. Now, I went on to say, look, these objections can't be because of policy objections, can't be because you don't like the law. The condition is that the White House must abide by the law unless the president has a constitutional objection to the issue at hand. And then a president is free to issue a signing statement and refuse to uphold a portion of the law that he believes is unconstitutional. And Brett Kavanaugh is exactly right. Now, you wait. This is just starting to heat up. This just broke service today. He's going to be hammered on this. Democrats are going to start bloviating hysterically. They are going to start frothing at the mouth. Steam is going to start hissing out of the tops of their heads because they will find this absolutely inexcusable. But Kavanaugh is exactly right. You know, it's Thomas Jefferson that said, and he's a lot closer to the thinking of the founders than anybody on the Supreme Court is today. And Thomas Jefferson said, look, the way the founders built this thing is with the separation of powers, each branch of government, whether it's the legislative, executive, or judicial, has the right to decide what the Constitution means in their sphere of authority. Nobody can dictate to them the meaning of, nobody else, no other branch of government can dictate to them the meaning or significance of the Constitution. So in other words, the judicial branch, including the Supreme Court, cannot dictate to the executive branch what the Constitution has to mean to them. The executive branch is perfectly free. They're intelligent people. They can read the Constitution for themselves. They can decide, for instance, if they got sent a same-sex marriage bill, which they never did, but if they got sent a same-sex marriage bill, they would have the complete freedom to decide, no, this isn't constitutional. A president would have the freedom to say, look, this isn't constitutional. I don't find marriage. I don't find gay marriage. I don't find homosexuality anywhere in the Constitution. I'm not going to follow this law. They would be well within their right to do it. That's the kind of jurisprudence we have got to get back to. Maybe Brett Kavanaugh will pave the way.
This is Dr. Richard Land, president of Southern Evangelical Seminary. Welcome to Bringing Every Thought Captive. President Trump has reimposed so-called snapback economic sanctions against the Iranian regime, the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the entire world. The sanctions will do great harm to an already faltering Iranian economy, which will make it harder and harder for the Iranian mullahs to continue to subsidize and underwrite terrorist activities around the world. As you remember, President Trump pulled America out of the terrible Iranian deal that President Obama put us into. It was not a treaty because the Senate wouldn't vote for it. It was just an executive deal with the Iranians, which gave them hundreds of millions of American dollars, which they immediately plowed into underwriting terrorist activities around the world. From the very beginning, President Obama ignored the pleas and the protests of the Iranian people against their government and stood idly by while the mullahs brutally and savagely suppressed all dissent. Make no mistake, if there were free and fair elections in Iran, the mullahs and their dictatorial regime and their secret police would be gone tomorrow. These reimposed sanctions by America will put tremendous pressure on the mullahs to give more freedom to their people and to not spend their country's wealth on terrorist and murderous activities around the world. The Trump administration's stated goal is to cause Iran to stop subsidizing terror, and number two, to bring more freedom, more liberty to the Iranian people. Those are both worthy and moral goals. This is Richard Land.
This is Focal Point with Brian Fisher
on American Family Radio.
Listen to the audio podcast or download today's program at afr.net. You can also read Brian Fisher's columns at afa.net.
afa.net.
Howdy and welcome back to Focal Point. Brian Fisher is my name. Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity, is the program. Network is American Family Radio Network. I'm your congenial, convivial, and amiable, as always, host. You know, we read about these lemonade stands that these kids set up on the corner, and they get shut down because they don't have a permit. Cops come and actually shut them down because they haven't got a $500 permit. Wow. And so it's just. I mean, that's just stupid. That kind of stuff. I mean, it's aggravating when you see that kind of nonsense. Now, a teenager. This is a story out of Monroe, North Carolina, about a teenager who held up a North Carolina lemonade stand made off with $17, but the police think they can track him down through possible DNA and fingerprints. I mean, you believe that? We're now using DNA. We've gotten to the place now where we're using DNA to solve robberies of lemonade stands run by kids. Well, I do hope they get the guy, and I hope he gets prosecuted to the absolute full extent of the law.
Was that the kid that was saving up for a lawnmower?
Let's see. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a business card. The kid had a business card, described him as an organic lemonade stand operator, a designer, a dog walker, a reptile caregiver. Well, maybe he can take care of this guy when he's in jail. A lawnmower, and a professional ring bearer.
Oh.
9 years old.
Wow.
So anyway, our best
entrepreneur we go on there.
Well, there was some good news about that. One of the hardware stores ended up donating a lawnmower to him.
All right, there you go.
That's good news. Yeah, that's great.
You know, and that's the American spirit right there. Yeah. I mean, that's not a government program.
Nope.
You know, that was just one guy with a resource and a generous heart meeting a need that he was aware of.
That's great news of it.
Yeah, that's a cool story, and I hope they get the guy. Now, let me grab clip number 3, because you're still hearing, I mean, the media is all afroth with their conviction that Donald Trump is racist when it comes to black people, and completely ignoring the fact that, as we said yesterday, Donald Trump is an equal opportunity insulter. He insults people equally, regardless of race, color, creed, or class. In other words, his only criterion is this: you punch me, I'm going to punch you back 10 times as hard. And remember, I referred to that column yesterday that I read that is talking about response to people that are hypercritical of Donald Trump's lack of civility or decorum or nuance or smoothness or whatever. And this guy said, look, we've tried all those things. We've tried diplomacy. We have tried being nice. We've tried being reserved. We've tried being going along to get along. I mean, you're not going to find anybody who is more of a gentleman than George Bush. You're not going to find anybody that was more diplomatic. I mean, he never had a bad word for the press, never had a bad word for his enemies in the media. Did it get him anywhere? Absolutely not. And I'm convinced, along with the writer of this piece, that only Donald Trump, well, let me back up. Only a man with the kind of personality that Donald Trump has could have possibly done what Donald Trump has done. Nobody that was any nicer than he is could have gotten the job done. I mean, he had to come in to this deal with writing a wrecking ball. I mean, this is what Rick Perry talked about. He wanted to go to D.C. and take a wrecking ball to that place and just raze it to the ground. Well, Trump's the kind of guy that has the moxie and the take charge and the take no prisoners attitude to do that thing. He's the only guy that can get this stuff done. So I do believe that he is the perfect president for this time. Could not get the things done that we need to have done without being the kind of guy that he is. So anyway, Anderson Cooper 360 or 240, whatever it is. You know, you think about 360.
Yeah.
Anderson Cooper 360. Yeah, Rob, you're exactly right.
Yes.
What happens if you go 360? You're going around in circles.
Absolutely.
So Anderson going around in circles Cooper has two black guys on, Cornel West, who is a black Harvard professor, and a CNN commentator and Trump supporter, Paris Denard. And Anderson Cooper spent about 3-4 minutes trying to get these guys to call Donald Trump a racist, and they just wouldn't cooperate. Here is Paris Denard, and I think we'll hear from Cornel West somewhere along the way.
What we know about this president is that he doesn't attack first, but he always responds. He'll respond to someone who's black. He'll respond to someone that's a woman. He'll respond to someone that's white.
Right. It's fascinating to me, though, Paris. I get you're a supporter of the president, and that's your gig, and you can't publicly break from him because then you'll get in trouble, I guess. But
Anderson, actually, you're wrong. I'm a grown man, and I have my own opinions. I don't work for the Trump administration. I never worked for the campaign, and they don't pay me.
So you don't believe that there is any commonality in the criticisms, his go-to criticisms on African Americans. You don't see any through line to this.
The president has done this to African Americans, to white people, to white men, to white women, to members of his own cabinet.
Professor West, I mean, do you think there's a commonality in?
Well, no, he has called some white sisters dumb. I think he called Sister Mika on MSNBC dumb. So I think Brother Paris is right. He uses dumb across race, across gender.
So, and the final part of that soundbite, he is an equal opportunity gangster across the board. That's what Cornel West said. He's an equal opportunity gangster across the board. So Donald Trump is not a racist. He just insults everybody, regardless of the color of their skin. And again, I don't have Donald Trump's personality. I would never do or say the things that he has said. You know, I had a listener yesterday. Jeff was talking about the two activists, Candace Owens and another activist.
Kirk.
Kirk. The last name was Kirk.
James Kirk is from Star Trek. Sorry, wrong Kirk.
But they were just trying to have breakfast, and they got assaulted by these protesters that were just screaming in their face, pouring drinks on them, and they're just trying to have a quiet breakfast, minding their own business. You know, so you talk about this Trump derangement syndrome, and how it's and Jeff is kind of reeling off what they did.
Yeah, dumping megaphones in their ears, whistles, dumping drinks on them, and so on.
So I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh. Jeff said another one. I said, oh my gosh. He said another one. Oh my gosh. And so this listener thought I was saying OMG, that I was taking God's name in vain. And I have never said that. I've never said that expression in my entire life, other than when I'm repeating that phrase in a conversation like this. I've never said it once in my entire life because of my regard for the name of God. I don't want to misuse his name, lift it up to no purpose. So anyway, I had the opportunity to clarify that with her, but Donald Trump doesn't have the same kind of reticence when he goes after somebody.
You know, when we had all those Occupy and all the screaming and everything, they were screaming like that too. You know, just at the top of their lungs.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like crazy.
It was
almost
demonic
well,
craziness.
In fact, I've got a story here about Nicholas Cruz, the guy that shot up that Parkland High School.
Yeah.
The high school in Parkland. He told authorities that he had was haunted by, quote, a voice with no name telling me what to do. This is according to a transcript that they released yesterday. Cruz's interrogator asked him what the voice told him to do. Remember what John 10:10 says? Jesus said, he came to kill, steal, and destroy, but the Son of Man has come to give life and give it to the full. So what's the purpose of Satan? What's his role? What does Jesus say? To kill, steal, and destroy. Here's what Nicholas Cruz told the police this voice was saying to him: burn, kill, destroy.
Wow.
Anything. So this is virtually directly the voice of Satan speaking to this guy. And Satan has the capacity to do that. He can project his thoughts into our minds. That's why we need to constantly be screening the thoughts that come into our minds, and then we stand against those that we know are contrary to the revealed will of God. We verbally rebuke those thoughts in the name of Jesus. And Nicholas Cruz didn't know enough to do that. That's a failure probably of whatever kind of spiritual education he got. I mean, we just don't talk about spiritual warfare in the church anymore, but that's what you do. That thought pops up, a suicidal thought pops up, a thought that I'm a transgender pops up, a thought that I'm a homosexual pops up. You immediately confront that in the name of Christ and take authority over that thought. This is just a minor little factoid. There's a lot of conversation about whether we got a blue wave coming or a red wave. Donald Trump said in Ohio, I don't think there's a blue wave coming. I agree with him. I'm just not seeing it. And I read one article on a left-wing website talking about this blue wave that they thought was certain to come. And the reality is, if the Democrats are going to take back the House, they have to win 23 seats. And this NBC article, you go through it and look at the race-by-race comparisons, and they're talking about this blue wave, but it turns out that the Democrats, according to their own calculations, are only favored in 12 of the 23 seats that they need to flip. So NBC is saying, look, there's 23 seats that they got to flip, and these are the most flippable, and this is going to be a blue wave, Democrats. But then you look at the details, they're only favored in 12 of those races. You probably heard about the assassination attempt on the Venezuelan dictator Maduro using drones carrying C4. You know, I've been wondering when this was going to happen for the first time, and I'm telling you, I'm wondering when somebody's going to fly a drone into a Super Bowl site in the middle of the game, packing C4, and just plow it into the crowd somewhere. I think we're into a whole new era right now of terrorism with the capacity these drones have to carry payloads. If you can use them like Amazon's been doing to deliver packages to somebody's front door, they can carry a certain amount of weight. No reason that couldn't be an explosive in the hands of the wrong individuals. That's something we're going to have to keep a very, very close eye on. You know, San Francisco said we're going to make it possible for illegal aliens to vote. You know how many illegal aliens have registered to vote in San Francisco since they were given permission? 1. Count them. 1. You know, and they're afraid to register, afraid they get fingered, and they should be.
I'm Ed Vitagliano. The direction of our country was changed by the presidential election of 2016, due in part to Christian voters. The 2018 midterm elections may confirm that direction or change it again. By voting based on values, Christians bring a godly influence to government. Voter registration deadlines vary by state. Make sure you are registered, and then, on Election Day, make sure to vote. Be an informed voter. Visit afaaction.net to get the AFA Action Voter Guide.
Imagine you're back to school shopping and your little girl comes running from the restroom in tears saying she saw a man in there. Sadly, scenes like this are playing out at Target stores across the country. Their policy is to allow men into women's restrooms and fitting areas. If some of us don't stand up and say this is wrong, what comes next? Protect your family and send Target a message by doing your back-to-school shopping elsewhere. Learn more and sign the Boycott Target pledge at afa.net.
I read some of the comics and they really touched my heart. Thank you so much for the Truth for Youth Bible.
It's Truth for Youth Bible Week, and this year, American Family Radio, Engage Magazine, and Revival Fires International are partnering to give God's Word to our nation's youth. Parents, order a free Truth for Youth Bible for your teens to pass on to a friend. Or teens, you can order a Bible for a friend. And youth leaders can order Bibles in bulk for just $2 a piece.
We saw so many lives changed and seeds planted in the hearts of our students.
Visit truthforyouth.com or call 800-733-4737 between 8 and 4:30 Central Time. That's 800-733-4737. Order a free Bible for your teen to pass on.
It's like, man, I really like the Truth for Youth Bible. How do I get to your church?
Call 800-733-4737 between 8 and 4:30 Central Time or visit truthforyouth.com.
My life is changed forever.
American Family Radio. You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Howdy, and welcome back to Focal Point American Family Radio. Brian Fisher is my name. As we hit the, what do they call the last lap of a race? What's that? What is that called?
Final lap.
Final lap.
They're under the white flag.
The bell
lap. Is that what they call it? What's
Something
the one?
like that.
What color flag did they use for the last lap? Green. What is it?
I'll look it up. Are you talking about
maybe it's
car
white.
racing?
Yeah, Daytona. This is the Daytona 500 of conservative talk radio. The fastest 60 minutes in American media, and I don't even know what the color of the flag is that I'm looking for as we head into the last lap. But I got a couple of.
It's a white flag. Is the
white
last
flag
lap.
is signals the last lap.
Last lap. Yeah.
Okay.
White flag lap, and track. Cross country and track. The last lap was always a bell race.
Bell lap. Okay. Now, I want to talk about this trial. I got two components to this. One is the trial where Paul Manafort is on trial. And we talked about this yesterday. This is absurd. It's a farce. It's obscene. I mean, I'm not saying that Paul Manafort did not do what his partner Rick Gates said he did. I'm not saying that. He might well have done it, in which case he deserves to be punished. But this guy did those things back when Barack Obama was president. All these things happened under Barack Obama's watch, and the FBI and the DOJ didn't do schmutz. They did nothing. So why are they all over this guy like white on rice all of a sudden? It's because they can think they can use him to get to Trump. I mean, and that's what the judge said. The judge called him out on that early in the trial. He's like, I know what you guys are doing. You're not interested in Manafort. He's just a tool to get to Donald Trump. So he's on to their game, and he has been very unhappy with the prosecution for the pace at which they are prosecuting the trial. And then I also want to talk about some of the information that's come out about Bruce Orr, who is the fourth-ranking member of the FBI. We're going to talk about that here in the next couple of minutes. And it turns out, remember, Bruce Orr was Well, let's go back to Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele was the one that wrote the dossier that was funded by Hillary Clinton and the Democrats, and they got the information from Russian sources. There's your collusion, ladies and gentlemen. If you're looking for collusion with regard to the 2016 race, there it is. The collusion was between Hillary Clinton and Christopher Steele and the Russians that Christopher Steele interrogated to get information, get dirt on Donald Trump. I mean, that makes whatever happened at Trump Tower, you know, and all this dust in the air over the Trump Tower meeting, ladies and gentlemen, trust me, that was a nothing. That was a zero. That's a non-entity. That is a nothing burger. What happened, we knew this back at there's nothing new that's come out. We knew back at the time that the setup was we've got dirt to offer on Hillary Clinton. And they took the meeting because here was an opportunity to do opposition research. Everybody does it. Hillary Clinton paid Christopher Steele $165,000 to do it. So there's nothing illegal about this. You know, if Donald Trump's in trouble for that, then Hillary Clinton ought to be behind bars somewhere wearing a pink jumpsuit or something like that. So what happened is this Ms. Vizhelnetskaya, I forget her first name now, but she's the one that arranged for this meeting at Trump Tower with Don Jr. and a couple of other, I think Manafort was in that meeting, and they offered some information on Hillary Clinton. Fine, it's opposition research, they show up. But they didn't have anything. They had nothing. They had bupkis, they had schmutz. It was just a ruse to get in the door. And then when they got in the door, what they wanted to talk about was something called the Magnitsky Law, which prohibited American couples from adopting Russian children. And they wanted to see if they could lobby the incoming Trump administration, in case they won, to lighten up on the Magnitsky Act, is what it was called. You know, because that's a source of change. That's a source of income for the Russian government, because they can run the fees for those adoptions up pretty high, and they can start milking American citizens who just want to adopt a child for a lot of money. Anyway, this Christopher Steele guy was bounced by the FBI. They never were able to verify anything. All the information was unverified, and they used his unverified information to get the FISA warrant to spy on Carter Page. We've been over that before. But here's the deal. Christopher Steele was actually fired by the FBI because he was leaking to the media. And the FBI said, look, we're using you as a confidential source. We can't use you anymore because you're taking stuff you get from us and you are leaking it to the media, so we are going to fire you. We're no longer going to use you as a source. But then it turns out that Christopher Steele hooked up with Bruce Orr, who was the fourth-ranking member of the FBI. He was fourth in charge at the FBI, and what Bruce Orr would do is he would meet with Christopher Steele, who would feed him information. Christopher Steele would feed Bruce Orr information that he was getting from Bruce Orr's wife. Bruce Orr's wife worked for Fusion GPS. That's the same outfit Christopher Steele worked for. So Christopher Steele would feed information to Nellie Orr, or Nellie Orr would feed it to Christopher Steele, and either one of them would meet with Bruce Orr, and he would feed it to the FBI. And Bruce Orr met at least 12 times with Christopher Steele after the FBI said, we've cut this guy loose because he leaks. So now, we got a couple of sound bites I want to play. Let's grab the first one. Let's grab clip number 5. This is Devin Nunes talking about Bruce Orr with Sean Hannity last night.
Bruce Orr is going to become more and more important in this investigation.
Explain it, 302.
So the FBI interviewed Bruce Orr at least a dozen times and put together reports. So once they fired Steele, which at that point they should have not been meeting with him anymore, but what they had is they had Bruce Orr, whose wife Nellie Orr was working for Fusion GPS, was going to meet and still get the information from Christopher Steele as they were trying to verify this unverified dossier, or the Clinton dirt that was used to get the FISA warrants.
All right, so this guy's going to become increasingly important. Expect to hear Bruce Orr's name mentioned more prominently as this thing moves forward. They're going to want to know, why did you meet with this guy 12 times after you had been fired? Who in the FBI, Bruce Orr, gave you authorization to meet with a discredited confidential informant after he had been fired for leaking? Who gave you the authority, the authorization to do that? Now, clip number 7 is Joe DiGenova, former federal prosecutor, and he's talking about this farce of this Paul Manafort trial that we're watching play out. This clip number 7.
What you are watching is what is called in the Justice Department an in terrorem prosecution, the use of terror legal tactics to destroy a human being, to try and force him to cooperate when he has nothing to cooperate with. And what the special counsel has done, Mr. Mueller, is he has chosen his Jack the Ripper-like leader, Andrew Weissman, to use the type of tactics that are properly reserved for mafia gangs, for terrorists, and they have converted Paul Manafort into this ugly creature. This is one of the most unfortunate moments in the history of the FBI and the Department of Justice. This case is the Rosemary's Baby of Rod Rosenstein, who forced this prosecution, permitted the abusive tactics which occurred during the investigation and which are occurring in this trial, agreed to by the FBI Director Chris Wray, and of course, the Attorney General is asleep, somnambulant, as this horrific embarrassment to the department continues in the Eastern District of Virginia. This is a disgusting display of prosecutorial abuse for which the Attorney General and his deputy should be ashamed, because the Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Rosenstein, has given Mr. Mueller full authority to do whatever he wants. And because the ultimate goal here is to, quote, get something on President Trump, they've decided to ruin Paul Manafort, who has no criminal record, whatever you may think of his political leanings and his tactics over the years, or who his overseas clients were. He does not deserve this. The Attorney General knows that. The Deputy Attorney General knows that. But you know what? They don't care, because they know that Mueller wants to get Trump. That's what this is about. There's nothing for Manafort to flip on, for heaven's sakes. So what you are watching is a bizarre mistreatment of a human being.
A bizarre mistreatment of a human being. Last clip today, let's go to clip number 4. This is Margaret Brennan, Face the Nation host, asking Representative Adam Schiff, remember he's the top Democrat going after Trump on the Intelligence Committee, and here is her question and his answer.
Can you agree that there has been no evidence of collusion, coordination, or conspiracy that has been presented thus far between the Trump campaign and Russia?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy in plain sight. Oh, yeah? Now, that's a different statement than saying that there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt of a criminal conspiracy. Bob Mueller will have to determine that. But, of course, the entire meeting at Trump Tower...
You acknowledge that the FBI has not presented it thus far? I'm drawing this distinction because this is what the White House is arguing here, that the president is drawing a distinction, that he is saying when he says hoax and witch hunt that he means one thing, and that it's not really trying to disassociate himself from what his national security team says.
Well, first of all, we haven't seen what Bob Mueller has produced in terms of the evidence yet. So in terms of FBI proof, they're not going to present proof to the Congress.
So in terms of FBI proof, they are not going to present proof to the Congress. You know, that's Adam Schiff saying FBI's got nothing to show for their investigation. Well, that is it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, the fastest 60 minutes in American media. Glad to have you in the conversation. SPLC, by the way, apparently still hooked up with the Southern Poverty Law Center, contrary to what they told us years ago. Bow low before God, stand tall before man, stand in the gap where God has placed you. Never forget, we are fighting a winnable war. See you tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
As millennials, we have more than $1 trillion in purchasing power, so you know businesses are watching us. But millennials are losing our faith, so we know Satan is watching us. Engage Magazine is for millennials by millennials, and it speaks to faith, purpose, and a closer walk with Jesus. Because above all, God is watching us. Visit engagemagazine.net and listen Saturday afternoons at 5:30 Central on AFR.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio, a ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News on the Hour, I'm Chris Woodward. The people of Indonesia are still in need of prayer this hour. That's because thousands left homeless by a powerful quake that ruptured roads and flattened buildings on the Indonesian tourist island of Lombok are sheltering in makeshift tents. Authorities say rescuers have not yet reached all devastated areas, and they expect the death toll to rise. It was the second deadly quake in a week to hit Lombok, a less developed island compared with its more famous neighbor, Bali. A new round of tough economic sanctions for Iran. Fox's John Decker has more from the White House.
The reimposed sanctions on Tehran are aimed at blocking the Iranian government from accessing U.S. dollars and crippling the country economically. As part of the renewed sanctions, oil companies will have until November 4th to adjust to the returning U.S. ban on buying Iranian oil. Criticism coming from the foreign ministers of the EU, Germany, France, and the UK, who said in a joint statement that they will protect EU companies doing legitimate business with Iran from the impact of U.S. extraterritorial